All right, so this is the first episode of my new YouTube show. We have a very special guest coming in today. This episode is dedicated to Male Survivor Awareness Day. The purpose of this was to have an inclusive conversation about sexual assault. So I want to give a fair trigger warning. There's a lot of information to learn today, and we're just here to listen and have those conversations. Personally, I've been very vocal about my incident that happened in 2015 with sexual assault, as well as me using that story to bring light to other people who may have been ignored in their stories. I was part of passing SB 813 with Gloria Allred and Mike Gibson back in 2016, revoking the statute of limitation on rape charges in California. And so me understanding that my story has helped others in their triumph, in their victory, and understanding has really motivated me to continue the conversation, and that's where we're here today. So we're just gonna really just jump kind of right into this.
Let's do it.
So, BJ, who are you?
I'm a lot, man. In terms of titles, I'm a dad first. Shout out to my son. Mm-hmm. Damn, he's in college now. That's crazy. Yeah. Shout out to my son. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I'm an educator. I've been in education 15, 16 years now. Mental health advocate. Mm-hmm. Once upon a time, I was an athlete. I'm in entertainment. I model, I act, I write. So those are like titles.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm just a flawed human being, man, trying to do his best. That's basically it.
Perfect and perfect, right?
Taking my traumas and making movements and positivity.
Yeah.
Man, that's basically it.
Well, you're doing it, and I'm really proud of you. And just to kind of reiterate, I definitely did your event or your film in 2019. Where we talked about some things.
Crazy. Yes, we did.
But now we're gonna flip it.
Wait, can I say you are the only? No, you're the second one, but you were the first with your story, and it was mind blowing.
Wow. So I shared my story on your platform. What is your story?
Sexual assault, right?
Yeah.
I was in college, man. It's funny how I talk about it, how I've always talked about it, and when I've told people, they never really take me serious when I say it. Mm. But I was in college. I was at a party at an apartment, just belligerently drunk. And I remember I was there with a young lady. And she got mad at me for something, but I was drunk, so I couldn't tell you what it was. And I remember sitting on the couch, middle of the party, and I'm like, yo, I'm going home, because I'm done for right now. So I walk home. It was that close. That apartment was close. So I walk home. And I didn't know this at the time, but I'm walking home. I get to my apartment, I lay in the bed. I wake up naked with a woman next to me. I remember I had a purple lifestyle condom on, and I remember just my penis was hurting. And I'm looking at this lady, didn't know who the fuck she was. So I'm assessing the situation because I'm waking up drunk. I've never had a hangover, so I wasn't hungover. But I'm like, what the fuck is this? Why am I? Mm-hmm. Look at her like, yo, who the fuck are you? And she kind of turned over huh? And I was like, who the fuck are you? And she said, I forgot what she said. I can't even remember her name. Mm-hmm. And I was like, did you follow me home? And she said, yeah, I followed you home. The only thing I said was, yo, get the fuck out of my apartment and don't you ever speak to me again. Mm-hmm. And she said, what? I said, get the fuck out of my house and don't you ever speak to me again. And that was it. And I remember I took the longest shower. I didn't employ bleach on me. For me, it was at the time I didn't feel like it was sexual assault in terms of I didn't feel like, I don't know how people who have been sexually assaulted or raped and taken advantage of feel, but I didn't feel I felt violated, but not in a way of
there wasn't a title to it.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. I couldn't define it at the time, mm-hmm. And it wasn't until later in life where I was like, no, this motherfucker really just followed me home. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I didn't lock my door. Came into my apartment, and I say I don't remember anything mm-hmm. past laying in my bed going to sleep. I don't remember the sexual act itself. Mm-hmm. I just remember waking up naked and she's naked. That's all I remember. And thank God she put a condom on me. So
yeah,
I'm cool with that. I guess in terms of the safety of safe sex, but So at the time, I'm like, ew. And can I say this? Like, not that this would make it any better or any worse, but I looked at it, I was like, I would never, we would never have sex if, even if I did know you, like, you're just not a woman I'm attracted to.
Yeah.
We would never have sex, drunk or not. Like, that's just not something that would happen. So at the time, I was more mad, like, this unattractive ass woman was like, got something from me. That's I was like 19, 20.
That's the way you interpreted it.
Right. I interpreted it as like, okay, so I had sex with somebody that I would never have sex with, not like this sexual.
I was raped.
You took something from me.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't take it as that. So when I would tell the story, people would not laugh, but like, you wild, like, that's crazy. But not like, nigga, like, she raped you, bro. Like, you know what I mean?
Did you take it seriously?
At the time, I kind of serious in the terms of, like, again, like, I can't believe she had sex with me and I would never do that. Not like, I feel so fucking violated. But I took the longest, like, it was like an hour and a half shower. Like, I kept scrubbing myself. More so just because, like.
You said with bleach too?
Damn near. I looked at the bleach, like, I should just go ahead and use this. I used alcohol, though.
Okay.
So I didn't know. Like, I did not know what happened. I did not know if oral happened. I could not tell you what happened. I got in my bed. I remember it was an air mattress. Broke college students. I had an air mattress. It was in the back of the apartment. It's dark. I didn't turn nothing on. So, like, I just boom, 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 fell asleep with my clothes and I woke up naked. That's all I know. But she had already said, like, yeah, I followed you home.
Yeah.
And I was with somebody, so I can't say that we spoke at this party either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you have an interaction.
Yeah, of
we
course.
didn't speak at this party either. Like, I was with somebody. We didn't get into it. She just, I don't know, we're both faded, so she probably got mad at something. I don't know. Maybe talking to another girl. I don't know.
Y'all were 19.
19, 20, yeah,
Yeah.
that shit goes.
Yeah.
But, like, I do know I did not speak to her. Like, we didn't have a conversation at all. So there's nothing that would lead you to believe that you can follow me the fuck home.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
Is it difficult? Let me just ask that question.
It's not difficult at all.
Who was the first person that you told? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember. Actually, my cousin. I told my cousin because he was there with me in college. And he clowned in a loving way of like, ew. I didn't feel like he didn't take it serious. I didn't feel like he was like dismissing it. But he also doesn't understand. Looking back, he didn't understand that language and that, and like, what's going on. And because
I mean, also too, if a woman were to say that, it would have been taken seriously.
Would have been. And I also
More
thought
than likely.
Later in life, like, if I would have went to the cops and said that story, how would they have taken that or have handled that? Like, I would have got laughed at more than likely, because statistically speaking, they would have laughed at me.
Yeah.
Like, I wish a girl would follow me home, and like, no, you don't. Like, it's just, if you do, I think something is off with you. So this is, as the time goes by, the rest of the semester, I thought about it, because this was like mid fall.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I eventually go back home, because I was out of town. I go back home and thought about it some more. And it didn't bother me to the fact where it was debilitating. You know what I mean? I moved on in life. I was able to continue on with the work that I was doing in terms of, I was an athlete, so sports happened. But when it would come up, I'd be like, damn, this bitch really just... Like,
and how did that feel for you when it would come up?
At the time, I'm like, this woman that I would never have sex with had sex with me, and I'm really mad about that. Because also doing the work that I've done and, going to therapy, I identified a lot of my, first of all, I dealt with depression with sex. When I'm depressed, I do sex. Sex is that's how I deal with depression. That's my vice.
Wow.
And so understanding that, later doing therapy, and also being sexually assaulted or raped, and then navigating that aspect of, because I deal with depression with sex, or I used to. I get depressed or I have a depressive episode, I'm looking to have sex. You know what I mean? And that's how I get through that. And then being sexually assaulted and or raped and navigating that, but also being sexualized as a kid. A lot of times with young black boys, we are sexualized and praised for sex. We get points for sex, right? Like, you get
notches on the belt.
Notches on the belt, as opposed to somebody pulling us to the side and saying, "Hey, this is what happened to you. Let's help you through that." It's, I see you, big dog. You know what I mean? Even if it's not sex itself, like, sex as an act is there's a lot goes into it. Like, even just like getting a number from an older woman or something, or just getting like a kiss on the cheek, like all of those things. And I'm not saying those things are bad if it's age appropriate, but having somebody sit you down and talk to you about that. So for me, navigating that aspect, and obviously this is all later in life, right? I didn't go to therapy till I was 30. So this is at least 11, 12
10 plus years,
right?
yeah.
So navigating that, figuring all of that out, and then finding out, like, by definition, you were raped. But not feeling like the rape in the way I grew up understanding it as somebody violently taking something from me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you remember, you had this kind of not immature, but you had your own understanding of what happened. This woman who's I'm not attracted to, we had sex and I didn't like it. Because I remember specifically, so my story, when it happened, I too took a shower, a very long shower, and then I just kind of went on with my life. Like nothing ever happened.
Right.
And it took probably about a year or so to where my friends had to tell me, I was telling the story jokingly,
right,
like we're talking about.
Yeah.
And they were just like, Jayce, you were raped. And I was like, no, I wasn't. I was just, like, no, like, that was not consensual sex. You were raped.
Yeah.
And so from there, I kind of went to, all right, let me process that word. Because that word's a lot for somebody. And from there, I remember I got triggered, and that's when I almost crashed my car. It's the whole situation. So do you remember when you kind of when that word rape, when you had to say, like, I was raped?
Yeah, it actually came from myself. Just after a conversation. It wasn't about that incident, just a conversation I had with a young lady. She talked about something happening to her, and I was like, oh, nigga, you was raped. And it was just that. You were raped. And I moved on with life again. Like, you know what I mean? It happened. What I'm going to do now?
Yeah.
Have her arrested? I'm going to beat her up? Like, I couldn't even tell you this woman's name. So what I'm going to do? Retaliate? No. This is years ago at this time. So it's like, well, fuck it. You was raped. All right, move on. You know what I mean? I got other shit to worry about right now. So that's really what it was for me. But I came to that realization after a conversation with a friend of mine about an incident that happened to her.
Okay.
And it made me think of it. So that's where it came from for me.
And this was a friend that you were talking to?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did she acknowledge what happened?
I didn't tell her.
I didn't tell her.
It was just something that I was in my head after the conversation with her. We got off the phone, and she was, I helped her through something as much as I could. And I was like, wait, BJ, you were raped.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
And how did that feel?
It really was just that was fucked up, and I kept it pushing. Like, that's literally my thought process. Like, oh, you were raped. All right, whatever. It happened. What are you going to do about it?
So I think that's even that in itself, once we even acknowledge, because that's what it was for me too. I was like, okay, I was raped, move on with life again. But I think that also there's a conversation there about masculinity and how boys are raised just to not feel.
Right. Yes.
Especially black boys. And we go through these things, these motions of life, and we're supposed to just push through.
Yeah.
And not take the time to digest what has actually happened or happening in the moment as well.
Yeah.
And so, do you remember that moment where you kind of, the next level, if you will?
It was therapy for me. And I was in therapy for an entirely different thing, but when you get into therapy, you go through everything. And I told her the story, and, obviously I told her like I knew I was raped and sexually assaulted, and we dove into that. So for me, that was where I was, luckily for me, I was with a professional that helped me actually navigate that amongst other things. So yeah, that's where I was at when it actually hit me. And then, but again, it was when it hit me, it wasn't debilitating. It didn't paralyze me. It didn't and maybe that's something that we do as well as black men and black boys is the trauma that we take on, we absorb or whatever. It's just that we just absorb it and keep it moving.
Yeah.
But it didn't allow me to be like, oh, I can't believe this happened to me. Oh, what was me, whatever you want to call it. That didn't happen. That emotion didn't come over me. I felt violated, don't get me wrong. I felt disrespected. And I think it was the disrespect was more than anything. It was bigger to me than the actual, than feeling violated. Well, they go hand in hand. But I was with a professional. So I was able to get through that within, a relatively short amount of time through our therapy sessions.
You have
I did.
stories?
Mine is in entertainment. Mine is in modeling. I've had 2 photographers grope me. One tried it in the respect of like I gotta adjust because I'm in underwear and shit, right? Especially when I was just starting off, in modeling, you had to get your sexy on and you're in drawers and shit. And, so he the first time he did it, it was adjustment of my crotch area. And I was like, okay. But then he kept doing it. And I was like, yo, stop fucking touching me, was what I said. Like, stop fucking touching me. Like, all right, this ain't slick no more. Like, because sexually, all right, like, that shit doesn't bother me at all. Like, I'm here to do a job. It's just my job. You got to make the adjustments. That shit doesn't bother me at all. Like, at all. Like, I'm very secure in mine. So that didn't bother me at all. But, like, now you being a creep, bro. Stop fucking touching me. As a matter of fact, I'm done with the shoot. And I called my agent and let her know. And, you know, I don't know what she did past that. But he was very apologetic. And I was like, nah, that's some creepy ass shit, dude. Like, I'm not with that. And I left, and that was that, you know. And we never even used the photos because and the funny thing is he's actually a really good photographer. But we didn't use none of the photos for the lighting or whatever. Then the second time it happened, another photographer, and he was he was from Italy? I just remember, like, we're shooting in the middle of the shoot. He's just, like, flat out asking me, like, are you going to let me suck your dick? And I was like, nigga, what? Wait, what? And he said it again. Now, prior to that, he gave me some Speedos and shit, and he made a slight adjustment, but it didn't touch me itself. It was just a garment, so I didn't think nothing of it. But then he came flat out, and then he like approached me and tried to grab me. And I must have, excuse me, sir. And then, but prior to that shoot, my agent had said, hey, listen, because they had heard rumors, but they didn't know if it was true. Mm-hmm. So they had heard rumors. And so he said, listen, just be careful. If anything happens, I know you know how to take care of yourself. Leave, call me. Mm-hmm. All right, bet. And it happened. So he tried to touch me. Hey, man, grabbed his wrist, boom, football kicked in on me, boom, grabbed his wrist, flung that shit. I'm like, yo, I'm out. So I went to the bathroom first. Called my agent up. I'm hot like this motherfucker. I'm going off. He's like, BJ, calm down. I'm like, no. But then I'm also thinking, I'm new to modeling. If I beat this person up, which would have been easy for me, how am I going to be viewed in the industry, right?
Right.
Because there's a thing, because he was shooting for Hugo Boss and Versace and all these things, and he talking that shit. I can do this, and I can get you in this. And I'm like, bet.
Well, that's crazy too, because, so just for context,
yes,
the way we met
was through modeling. Yes.
And I also had a photographer. In this instance, it was, what are they? They were rubbing baby oil on me because we had to get the right shot for the wet look. And I was like, I can do it myself. He's like, oh, well, you missed a spot. And then next thing you know, he's like, yeah. And I was like, and then of course you're new. Right. So you don't know. And then even after that, I was told by a mentor of mine to, hey, how are you going to handle it when, you know, the top executives at X, Y, and Z want to do X, Y, and Z to you? Because that's going to happen to you. I had that conversation as well. Yeah. And so, again, at the time I was 19, 20. Yeah. And, you know, you want something so bad. You know, I was like, I need to be the top model. Yeah. I need to be this. And so I pushed myself in these spaces, but then to be met with sexual assault was so discouraging for me. I just completely like left the whole industry. So you got told this after you got into the game? I got told this after, correct.
See, I got told before. You know, I got schooled beforehand, so I kind of had knowledge of it, but I had never experienced it up until the first photographer, and then the second one was after that. And I've had the same kind of conversations where I was in New York, where a very prominent photographer wanted to take me to some island. And I'm hearing these stories about, this model does this, but I got him this because he did this. And I was like, man, listen, take me back to LA, bro. I'm cool. I'll go shoot these. It's not my deal. This is not how I get down. I'm the talent. You're the agent. Give me work. If I get it, if I get it. If I don't, I don't. But all this extra shit, I'm not fucking doing.
Well, that's kind of what the Me Too movement, when that first started coming out, and then you had Terry Crews say something. You had Brendan Fraser say something about being groped by executives and stuff like that, but didn't say anything because, again, it's
they hold your career in your hand.
Yeah.
Did you feel like this is not the only way, but a surefire way to get a goal met in terms of modeling and whatnot? Because it happens a lot.
It does happen a lot. I didn't realize to the degree that it happened. I think when that happened to me, I thought that was normal. Again, because again, I don't have a problem. You know, I'm here to, you know, wear clothes and get dressed, and you know, I was used to that. And so I thought that was normal. That's how I perceived it then.
Right.
And so, but then when I was told how you're going to handle yourself in these situations, my mind, I think initially I was like, no, but then I didn't want to put myself in those situations again.
Right.
And so I just kind of just left the whole in front of the camera modeling thing, because I don't want to do that. I was dealing with stuff with my sexuality as well. And so I was just there was a lot of things that were going on in my life, and I just didn't want to put myself in triggering situations. I knew that's what it was. And so, I just kind of left it. And if it was the only route to get to the top, I didn't have the time for that.
And see, for me, like, I was already working. I not that I hit the ground running. It took like a couple months for me to make my first gig, but it was huge. And then music videos happened, and then other huge gigs happened. I'm like, oh shit!
I remember when you got a Fisher Girl.
Like I was I think that was like the second job I ever did. Like the first job was a Levi's campaign. The second job was a Cassie music video. Like I'm on right now. My profile is moving up. Like I'm booking this and Sean John here. I'm walking for these people. I'm like, all right, bet. So the path is there. I'm seeing it, but then I ran into that, and I'm like, so for me, I had to like ask myself, if I got to run into this if I have to run into these kind of people, do I really want to be at the top? I do, but I don't have to do that.
But is it worth it?
Yeah, and I had to be okay with, like, if you don't reach this pinnacle, are you okay with that? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine with just being a working model. Like, you don't have to recognize me, I don't care. But I damn sure ain't dealing with this shit. Because I shouldn't, like, nobody should have to. And you really only hear about it from a woman's perspective or a young girl's perspective. When they're in the game, you hear about the creeps for them. But it's rare that you hear. It's one of those unspoken knowns, right? They know about it, but we don't speak about it, kind of thing. Of course. In that industry, and that goes across music, TV, film.
Because actually, the more violent one for me was behind the scenes with the producer.
Right.
So I tried to escape and go behind the scenes, and still ended up in a situation. So I want to talk about. We kind of touched upon before about the differences in the way that society, sees a male rape victim versus a female rape victim. I kind of want to get your insight, and I'll definitely chime in as well about those things, those double standards.
Double standard it is, and there's so many ways I can go with this. We are not. First of all, women aren't believed either. Like we victim blame for sure. So I'm not here to say that they don't believe us more than the other. They don't believe women either, which is fucking tragic and terrible and stupid as shit. And women are ridiculed as well. But I think we get dismissed. You know what I mean? Like they get victim blamed, we get dismissed. I think that's how I want to differentiate that. Again, for the first time it happened with the young lady in college, had I have gone to the cops or even just on campus and said something, I'm 6 feet 1 inches. You know what I mean? I'm playing football, I run track. Like I'm extremely strong. I'm all of these things that I can easily overpower this woman. I could easily have defended myself. Belligerent or not, just drunk or not, easily, right? So how are they going to look, this big black dude talking about this smaller girl taking advantage of him? That's one aspect of it. And it's sex. And you know how we view sex in America, especially from the male's perspective, right? Oh, she followed you home. That's a fantasy for me. I'm like, no, the fuck is not. It's not a fantasy for you. It's a fantasy for somebody that you want. And even that is like, you know what I mean? So there's another perspective. So I came in there and said, me being, tall black man, saying this young, this smaller woman came in and followed me home, and I was drunk, and she had sex with me. I don't know what happened, blah, blah, blah. And they're looking at me like, is that a problem? This is in my head. I don't know if that would have happened. Maybe they would have believed it.
Yeah, like that for me, I remember actually, I saw a therapist when I realized what had happened. Because I told you I had an incident where I almost crashed my car. And then I was like, okay, I cannot move on the way that I am doing. Because I'm poor. Yeah. And I can't keep crashing cars.
Yeah.
So I saw a therapist And I remember just, being just straight up,
Yeah.
hey, this is what happened to me. And she actually started crying. And I was like, that triggered me because I was like, wait, why?
Are you crying, lady?
I'm sitting here trying to, right. I'm just like, I need the nourishment.
Help me.
I'm like,
Help me.
And so it was just a whole ordeal. But I don't think that she had really knew how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And again, it's that thing. I think if a woman would have come in there and explained her story, it would have been a different reaction. And I mean,
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
As a man and that's been with men, do you think if you would have gone there, they would have dismissed that even more? Because you know how we treat homosexuality, bisexuality, how we treat all of those things, especially from men, quote unquote straight men. And do you think if you would have gone to the authorities and said, I was raped by this man, do you think they would have dismissed it even more, or dismissed it with disrespect?
Absolutely. And it's funny too because I was actually part of passing legislature to help rape victims in California.
That's great.
And that was in 2016, but I never pressed charges myself.
Right.
And even my buddy of mine now, Assembly Member Mike Gibson, he asked me, or like almost challenged me, like, hey, you should do this. And I was like, I'm black, I'm a man, and I'm in America. So I know that the way that the system works with everything else, how would that look for me? And then how you said, someone who has, been with men, this person was a man, not someone that I would ever be with. But I also knew that that's another layer to put into the mix too. Right. And so I was like, I just like envisioned myself in a courtroom and people laughing at me. And I was just like, I'm not
put myself through that.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. And so I kind of channeled that story into helping others. Do what you want. And I also want to say this too, like everyone's story, everyone's attack is their own. And they are allowed to do whatever they want to do with it. If they want to press charges, that's what they want to do. If they don't, then they don't. And I think a lot of times, I mean, I was even met with, well, you need to put this person behind bars. And I'm just like, that's not my responsibility. A rapist is a rapist. And so you can't put that on me as the victim and the survivor of the situation.
To also be the savior or the hero for others.
Right.
It's funny. For me, I thought similar, but because it's a woman, like they would never put her behind bars. And as I'm thinking about it, if a male
he was also white.
Oh shit!
So, so I took all list. And I was
what I mean? Like,
I'm not winning nothing. And also, I had been drinking that night too. I was drugged in the incidents, but I know But I was like, there's too many things.
Too many things stacked against you, which is terrible to say in terms of being a victim of it, because none of that should matter when you're a victim, but it does.
But it does.
That's the tragedy.
In the court of law.
Yes, absolutely. Even public opinion.
True.
Even public opinion, like there's going to be a good majority of the public that's like, and this, and we know the culture and alcohol, and but like, do we know what really happened? Like, how this goes, and this is me speaking from what I hear from women in their stories, right? So
absolutely.
And so when I say like they get victim blamed, we just get dismissed. But there are instances being black, being in America, it wasn't a man, he was white. Like we're definitely going to get dismissed and disrespected at the same time. Not saying either one is worse than the other. I'm not comparing the two in terms of what's worse.
But there's a difference in the way that it's received,
right?
By, like you said, the public, by the courthouse. We talked about a little bit of those comparisons. Y'all talked about kind of the sexualization of young black men, and also kind of comparing. Just having an outlet to voice things. We'll talk about resources later. I kind of want to get your opinion on trans people and their voice in this, because the whole point of Male Survivor Awareness Day is to have an inclusive conversation.
Yes.
In that, which is great. I think that there's still people who are left out of those conversations.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your thoughts.
I will say this: I am not as knowledgeable in trans. I mean, I'm not knowledgeable in any of this because I'm heterosexual. I'm straight. I have gay friends. I have lesbian friends and I've bisexual friends. I am not well versed, and I never like to speak like I have knowledge of things that I don't, only because I'm not a part of it. But
put it this way, because really trans people are just human beings.
Yeah, you're right. But there was an experience that they have that I have never experienced, and I can't say that I have been around to even be secondary to their experience. But funny enough though, I can't even call him. He doesn't call himself trans. He's drag. I don't know if it's not the same thing, is it?
No, it's different.
Okay, cool. He's different. Okay, cool. I mean that's different. But I do know they have been at the forefront of the LGBTQ, the letter community. I'm sorry if I'm disrespecting the
LGBTQIA.
That's just a whole lot of saying at the same time. They've been at the forefront of the movements, right? Was it like a trans woman that threw the first rock?
Marsha B. Johnson.
Yes. Like I know all of those things. They are dismissed. We treat them like they are not, just like some pariah, like they got leprosy, and I think their story, because they are humans.
I think that a lot of people really, they feel like it's a disconnected thing, but everybody knows how it feels like to be dismissed.
Exactly, and it's not. And they're not disconnected.
And as a black man,
I'll say this: I've had students transition. I'm a teacher, right? I have several students throughout my career. I have two now that are, I don't know if they've completely made the transition, but in terms of being identified as, so these are young girls transitioning into boys, teenage boys. And I don't know if they completely have had surgery. I haven't asked,
But I mean, the surgery doesn't matter.
I'm just saying in terms of like how far they've gone, but I do know they've identified as, and they tell me to tell them, and I'll call you what you want me to call you. That's great, fine. I also have noticed how the students treat them as well, and it's not really a big thing for our students. I think the adults have put their insecurities and our ignorance on these, for kids anyway. And this is just my experience.
I think more of what I'm getting at is, because for example, when I came forward with before I came forward with my story, I did research to find like, hey, where is my tribe? Where are the people who are speaking out about this? And I found some outlets that were very minimal, but most of them were, older and white, still men. And even with that, like, okay, I understand that, but like, I don't necessarily, that's not what, there's different variables in my life that is different. And so I think that I know that with a lot of things, trans people are not seen. At all. And I think, again, the point of Male Survivor Awareness Day is to have an inclusive conversation about those things, include men. But I think it's also important to include trans people.
Absolutely.
Men and women, non-binary people, because them too are victims. And just like how I was 6-7 years ago looking for, hey, a spokesperson or outlet, there's none of that.
I think if we're dismissed, I was just about to say that, I think if we are dismissed, they are completely ignored. There's been an uptick in murders of trans.
Of course. And
it legitimately might be a quick tweet, might be a quick, this person has been murdered, but everything about who they are is ignored. Which is tragic, just because that's still a human being, regardless of what you think about their life. It's not, their life is important, but what you think about their life is not. Something happened to them. And it needs to be acknowledged and spoken about, because if they, for me, the people who are the most vulnerable and we sweep those under the rugs, or we ignore them or whatever, it sucks, because when you take care of our, what do I want to call it? You take care of our most vulnerable, everybody else gets taken care of as well. So if we take care of trans people, who else is going to be taken care of?
Absolutely.
Black men, black boys, black girls, the white women, white men, because they're victims as well. This is not about them, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course. I think that there's a way to use, I recognize my privilege, even giving all my tiers of identity, whatever.
Yeah.
But I also recognize my privilege in spaces. Yeah. You have more privilege than I do, because, you're a straight man. But guess what? There's a white man out there that has more privilege,
than me.
Yeah, and so
I
I
know
think
where
that
I fall in the
yeah. And so I think this is really important to just really like uplift everybody, like you said, reach from the bottom and bring us all together, because it's we're all humanity and we're all people.
Yeah.
And so I definitely want to encourage you to like be an ally.
You know what's funny? I've gone to a couple of I guess events or talks where it's legitimately just LGBTQ centered. I went to.
Yeah.
It was great. I went there just to shut the fuck up and listen.
Yeah.
Because it's not my world. I just wanted to learned a lot. Just hearing everybody's plight it was great. And I've gone to several others after that. I can't fully say that I'm all the way there because I have a lot more studying to do. But, I've always, the work that I do.
Yeah,
Everybody's included in the work that I do. Nobody's excluded. Every story's included. Nobody's excluded in that. But I am really big on reaching to the bottom, and I hate to refer to that as the bottom.
Well, that's where society put them.
Right, yeah. I reaching from the bottom, make sure they're taken care of first, and then everybody else will be taken care of after that.
You said a great word, which was listen.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are talking, but are not listening.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre to me when people tell their experiences and someone has an opinion about it. Like, no. That's just like your experience is your experience. Yeah. Listen. Yeah. And I think that as a society, we need to do more listening, because we're not doing that.
Active listening. I tell this to my students all the time. Like, I know you hear, but you ain't listening. Mm-hmm. You can hear me. I know you heard what I said, but you ain't listening because you didn't do what I told you to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's hearing and then there's listening. There's active listening. When you actively listen, there's a response, right? There's an action behind. If I ask you to do something and you hear me, but you don't make them, even if you question what I'm asking you to do, you're actively listening, because I know you've processed the question or the command or the whatever. So we do a lot of hearing, but we listen to respond. We don't actively listen to make action or to do something about it. Just to add to what you just said. Yeah. For me, I do plan on getting more involved in the trans movement. I've never not listened. But my world is my world, so I have to actively go down and legitimately hear stories and legitimately put action behind the listening as well. But when I talk about us being dismissed, like, they are flat out ignored.
Yeah.
And that is fucking tragic, because why would you do that? Somebody violated this person and they need to be held accountable. Why would you ignore a victim?
Yeah, especially with sex work being such a huge the only way to make money, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gotten better now, but really, like, sex work has been a huge outlet for survival.
Yes.
For a lot of trans people, and in sex work, you're dealing with clients.
Even in that, and maybe I don't know if you have the answer to this. They start sex work relatively early, right, in life, like young teens. Mm-hmm. Like, that is still like rape and sexual assault. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's so much to unpack with that, because like they ostracized by either their family, obviously society, their family for sure, and then you put them out in the streets, and the only way they could really make money is drug dealing and sex work, but they're underage. Yeah. So not only are you talking about sex work, which sex work is great, you know what I mean, in terms of if that's what you want to do, right? Yeah,
but if it's for survival, because society has not set you up for success.
Yes, and that's where I'm getting at. Like, if you're doing that because that's the only way you can really make money right now, like, yeah, that's fucking tragic. And now you're underage starting it. Like, there's so much to unpack with that, because there's no way in hell that in a normal functioning society that a teenager, 12, 13, 14, would get into sex work just so they can have some money in their pocket to eat, or just somewhere to stay and some shit. Like, that part is the tragic part.
Well, I think it's important to just really uplift everybody. Everyone needs to be included in the conversations. Yeah. So we'll continue to do that. Yeah. What are some of the ways that you've kind of maintained your healing?
I'm preventative. I do the things daily to keep me from getting low. So I'm working out is big for me. But even bigger than that now is stretching. I'm old and shit, man.
You ain't old.
Body breaking down.
You're seasoned.
The body's old, man. Listen, a lifetime of football and track and field and hoops, like, goddamn, I'll be cracking all the time. But stretching it helps me sleep better blood circulation, and I sleep a lot, so getting rest has been I'm very preventative measures. Eating well, a lot of water. Obviously, I have my vices. I don't drink for like 4 months out the year. Then I'll just drink on weekends for the most part, unless I'm on vacation, then it's turn up time. But really for me, I have to do preventative measures. And then when things, so I've been diagnosed with situational depression and I forgot the other thing, I had to look it up. So basically something will happen. In my life, it's been a lot of death. Like I've been to 10 funerals in 13 months, just this past year.
Wow.
A lot of death. And that's really my main thing. But the constantly working out, I run on weekends, you know, like my intake helps me deal with it better than if I just did none of that and then go to therapy. But when big things do happen, therapy for sure. And then can I be vulnerable, man? Like I get to be around people that get to speak about their traumas, get to speak about their things, which is also therapy for me. And I have like psychologist friends and therapist friends and whatnot. And other than that, I sit in with whatever I'm feeling. You know, if I were to describe my mental and emotional health, I describe it as like peaks and valleys, right? There's a space in between a peak and a valley where I'm okay at. I get too high, it's bad. I get too low in a valley, that's bad. But if I try to maintain it in here, like, I try to maintain in here. There's going to be some things in life that happens and that takes you at either place. But for me, I'm preventative. Everything preventative for me. It's just like with healthcare. Eating right helps you, you know, your doctor bills won't be as expensive.
Yeah.
You brush twice a day. Your dental bill won't be as I'm not looking into the sun. My vision.
Your vision. Yeah.
For me, it's preventative, and that's consistent preventative measures helps me maintain more than anything. So even that, surrounding yourself with a really good circle, supportive circle, called them up. They showed up for me right away. You know, those are the things. So preventative measures, having a solid circle, and therapy.
Nice.
Those are my three big things.
Yeah.
Or I'll indulge with like some cookies and shit. You gotta feel
get
good,
your
man.
sweets.
Do shit to make you
Give
feel
me a
good.
sweet.
Do shit you like, man. What do you like? Do it. Eat some cake. Ice cream.
You mentioned off camera that this is your first time sharing your assault story.
Yeah.
Why now?
You asked. Shit, you asked.
Wow.
When I did my first story on Can I Be Vulnerable, was more of an overview about what took me into therapy. And really, at the time, I was dealing with the suicide of my big brother, and that was like a big thing for me.
Well, I asked, but I also asked if you knew somebody.
You did, and I said
Yeah,
me.
and you said you.
Yeah, why wouldn't I say me?
Okay. Hey, I mean,
I knew somebody else, but like shit.
yeah.
Me.
Well, I've known you for almost 10 plus years, and I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
So I think actually in that. I think asking people questions really allows people to reach back. I mean, like, how do you feel after today and like talking about this? Did you feel like a relief? Because
I mean, I've talked about it before. Again, I just never spoke on camera about it.
okay, but there is a difference.
There is a difference. Well, not to me, because I do Can I Be Vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but this is your story.
Yeah,
It's a little more personal.
Let me take this back. There was one story about with a gentleman last year, and I talked about mine, but we never released it because that was his first time saying it out loud. And I could tell because we ended up trying to navigate that. And I'm like, listen, I'm not putting this out because you have not dealt with this. So I think you need to navigate that with a professional, and then we'll talk about it when you have the words and the verbiage and all of those things so we can have a conversation about it. Because I'm looking at you right now. I'm like, bro, you have not told anybody this. Like, not on camera.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've told somebody really close to you, but you ain't told nobody else that, and I can tell. And with that, I gave like my quick little thing. But for me, being vulnerable is what I do. And so it doesn't, not that it doesn't feel great. But it was also nothing that I was like, ooh, I got that off of my chest either. Like, nah, it's just a story that I talk about. I've been through things that have, to me, are worse than that. You know what I mean? Not by much, but there were things that are worse than that that I've been through in life. To where I felt like telling my story with Can I Be Vulnerable, the first episode. Honestly, when I was telling it, I didn't even think about it. Like, that's where I was at with it. But you'd ask, so fuck it, I got a story, let's talk about it. Ain't nobody really, are they really gonna believe it? Are they gonna laugh at it? You know what I mean? So,
wow.
You know what I mean? Like, I still think that. I actually told the story last week. And the woman that I told it to, she actually apologized to me about it too. Because she said the way that you tell it doesn't seem like it's that serious, is what she said. And I was like, I mean, okay, but it's still fucking serious. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's just like comedians. How they joke about their pain.
I think that happens to me because I'm monotone.
Yeah.
And I will explain something that's like crazy, but in a very like, that happened. And they're like, wait, what did you just say? I was like, the house caught on fire.
So when I told her, I was like, yo, the chick was ugly as shit too. So that pissed me off. And she was like, see, like she laughed.
Oh, no, I wasn't laughing.
No, it's cool. That part don't bother me. But she laughed. But then the commentary after that was like, she didn't take it serious because like the way you said she was ugly as shit, like it feels like it was more because she was ugly as opposed to if she was attractive.
But do you think that you're also kind of putting comedic beats in there
I could
as
be.
well?
I absolutely could
Why?
be. It could be a way that I am dealing with that myself. Because again, in my life, I've been sexualized at a young age. My sister's older friends. I used to hang with I have older brothers, older siblings, and being around older chicks and the way that they would speak or talk to me or even like touch on me and shit. Like, you know what I mean? I've been sexualized. I come from a very open household, so sex was never taboo. You know what I mean? Being with older women at a young age, like that was always a thing for me. And so, and now, I'm handsome, I'm attractive, whatever. Tall, black man, deep voice.
I mean, you get paid to look.
I get paid to look like me. All right, cool. All right, we got that out of the way. And so that comes with people being sexually attracted to you, people sexually wanting you or lusting after you.
Yeah.
It comes with the territory or that kind of thing. And at the time I wasn't modeling, I was just an athlete. And so it could be me putting on as a defense mechanism as well. I acknowledge that. I could definitely be, but what I'm gonna do, sit here and be like, oh, it was...
Yeah, I mean,
You know
I think
what I
that
mean?
people deal and cope with things in different ways and express different ways as well. I think my main thing is just like, at least for me, is just acknowledging that within myself or within yourself. Like, hey, there's a reason why I'm talking in this way versus this way. Yeah. And so,
I told her, like, am I supposed to be like super pissed off or like raging about this story right now? Like, it happened many, many years ago. Obviously, I've gotten the help. I do the work that I do. And so, now I can make light of or make jokes of and still be mad and still be serious about it. But, and I told her I wasn't mad at her for her reaction to it. Like, that didn't bother me. I just thought it was interesting how you felt like I wasn't serious about it because I made a comment about her being ugly.
It's crazy because actually when I was doing research for this particular episode, I saw that there was stuff that was out there about how many comedic jokes in media and society there are about male assault. Don't drop the soap. You know, there was all these different, like, there was clips, hundreds of clips that were kind of compiled together, making jokes about assault.
It's fear mongering.
And when it comes to men, sorry?
It's fear mongering too. Don't drop the soap. Don't go to prison because they're going to rape you. They're going to whatever. Like, we use that as a weapon.
Yeah, and I think also that plays in a role in the voices that we have and the way that's received. I mean, we're not brought up to communicate those things and to talk about those things. And then, like your friend, even be able to receive those things in a serious manner. You know, I think there's a lot of stigma that comes around what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine, the notches on the belt like we talked about before. And I think if we, like you said, listen and really take people seriously for what they're going through, and also too, the men that are out there, you can talk about things.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry. It's okay to get it out. Yeah. When I came out with my story got 600,000 hits within like a week. And I had thousands of emails coming through. Yeah. And with people who finally felt like they could talk about it. Yeah. And it just took that one article that I put out there for a male to feel vulnerable. Yeah. To be able to talk about their experiences that they've been holding on to. And like holding on to things is such a horrible thing. I have to work on that as well. I hold on to a lot of things. I don't express it. Yeah. That's something that I'm working on actively. But that comes from me being raised to be a man and what that means. And so I'm constantly working on myself. And so I think what we said, acknowledging that everyone has a story.
Absolutely.
And everyone's story is valid. Yeah. And it all deserves to be listened to. Yeah.
One of the things when we talk about men not being able to be vulnerable, it's also our surroundings and people are not being receptive to it. So for everybody has a story and everybody should be receptive to everybody's story. If I come to you and say, this happened to me, and you dismiss me or you downplay it, I'm more than likely not to talk to you ever again about it or bring it up ever again because it wasn't received in a manner that I felt was, was safe enough. We talk about safe spaces and brave places as well, brave spaces. So I'm brave enough to come to you, but the place wasn't, this place wasn't safe enough for me to continue that conversation. So I'm never bringing it up again. And I think that, so for everybody else, like, yes, men speak up. You have a story like everybody else does. It is not on you to hold that in. You're doing yourself a disservice by doing so. Talk about that shit. But for everybody else, they come to you, just listen to them. You don't have to have a solution, and most of us aren't looking for a solution. We're looking for somebody to hear our story and say, I see you, I'm hearing you, what do you need from me? Because I don't have the answers. We can figure that shit out together. And I think for a lot of boys, for sure, young black men, we tell shit, especially early. We're conditioned to not speak. It's not like we don't speak early. We cry early in life. Stop crying. Be a big boy. Why are you crying? That shit don't hurt. Walk it off. Throw some dirt on it. All of those things. And so okay, well, that's a condition. And then all of a sudden I get older and something really, really happens, but you told me.
But you're still acting upon.
I'm still acting upon that. Don't talk. And then I did come to you and I tried to speak to you and you kind of dismissed me for whatever your reasons are. Had a long day at work and I came in and said, Mom or Pops or whoever, I want to talk to you about something. Although I may not have the language, I'm trying to, and you're like, get the fuck out of my face. I'm tired. Talk about it tomorrow. Whatever you say to me, I'm dismissed. Okay, well, I'm not speaking to you again. I'm not bringing this up again because
you're closed up.
I just tried to, and I got shut down. And so, yes, men, be vulnerable for sure. Everybody, be vulnerable, talk about your story. When somebody comes to you, listen. Like, just listen. You do not have to have the answer. I say it all the time. I don't have an answer for you, but like we can figure that shit out right now. And that goes a long way, because vulnerability works both ways. I got to be vulnerable, but people have to be receptive.
Receptive, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
No, that was amazing. I actually think that's a great way to end our conversation.
There it is.
With listening. Yeah. Do you have any other messages you want to put out to the world? What's your message to the world?
Listen. Actively listen. Stop hearing to respond. Shut the fuck up and listen. It's really not that hard. And be vulnerable, man. This is so much strength in that. Be vulnerable and shut the fuck up and listen. There you go.
I appreciate you, brother.
My man.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Thank you for asking. Shit.
Yeah, no, and we did it.
Yay!
All right, and cut.